gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Fenway Park.
And welcome to Monster Territory, ladies and gentlemen. We are a little late here tonight. I do apologize about that, but better late than never, like they always say. And listen, it is never too late to talk some rumors. We got some rumors and news going on at the general manager meetings this past week so far. Over the last couple of days, we've been hearing a lot of things, more so needs that Craig Breslau's been talking about here. Nothing new, nothing different by any means from what we've heard up to this point. He did talk about adding a middle of the order bat, maybe even two. He actually did touch on that as well. He talked about starting pitching for the top of the rotation. What we've been hearing, but I'll give you my thoughts on, even though he may be repeating himself, I'll give you my opinion on how I'm feeling about that. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But also, there's some news about Kyle Schwarber out there. Robert Murray giving us the inside scoop. He is there. I think he's still there. I'm not sure. But he had a few things to say about Kyle Schwarber and the Red Sox. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Craig Breslau also talked about a potential, maybe when it comes to dealing from the surplus when it comes to the outfield. He was kind of, didn't really give you a definitive answer, right? He was kind of bouncing around back and forth. And that's what Craig usually does anyway when it comes to, giving you a straight answer. I actually feel like he's been giving you a couple of straight answers here the last couple of days. But he did dance around this one. I'll give you that comment in a little bit. We also got something on Joe Ryan. He is a target for the Red Sox this offseason, but the president of baseball operations of the Twins, Derek Falvey, he did touch on Joe Ryan. Give you my thoughts on that. And Scott Boras. Scott Boras is back, ladies and gentlemen. He is back. Is better than ever the right way to say it. I feel like every year he's got all these new puns, and he gave us a couple of puns here today. Those are always fun to dive into. But he did talk about Pete Alonso, did talk about Alex Bregman. We'll touch on that. And we also have a couple little tidbits about Devin Williams as well. We got a little something there. And Christian Campbell, we actually got something on him in the last couple of days. So I'll dive into that. That was a mouthful to start off the show, but that just shows that we got a lot to talk about here. A lot to talk about. But if you can, help me out. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new. A lot of familiar faces here in the chat. Believe in Knicks. Phoenix, what's going on? Whitebeard Signs, how we doing? Hello. Moose, how you doing, my friend? Hello, hello. But everybody, let's get to it here. And let's start off with Craig Breslau. And going over the needs. And like I said, we already know what the needs are, but he did continue to touch on them. The first one, thinking big with the starting pitching, adding to the top of the rotation. Says here, adding starting pitching, and particularly someone we feel can start alongside or slot in behind Garrett and start a playoff game for us. Because of the depth that we've built up over the last couple of years, we feel pretty good about overall starting pitching and numbers 3-ish through 10-ish. And that's not to take away from the guys who are certainly capable of doing more. It's just to say, I don't think we're going to spend a ton of time trying to add a number 4 or number 5. If we're going to make a starting pitching addition, I think it should be somebody who can pitch at the front of the rotation. Goes on to say here, when it comes to when individual names were brought up here, saying, we'll see what the trade and free agent markets dictate. There are compelling opportunities in both, we think. We are also mindful of, while we believe we're in a window to contend and to compete for the postseason, World Series championships, we're also mindful of keeping one eye on the future. Trading away for really good young players for starting pitching is one way of pulling those wins forward. And there are times, we showed last year being one of them, that you have to do that. But we also don't want to be in a position where we're having to do that year after year. And then he goes on to talk about a big bat as well. He says here, I don't want to get anchored to this idea that the only way to score runs is home runs. We showed that isn't the case. I think we did talk about this the other night as well, but That said, a disproportionate number of runs in the postseason are scored via the home run, and that's not something we can ignore. And we got a little something here. Let's kind of dive into a couple individual topics, right? When it came to the outfield surplus, we all love using the word surplus when it comes to the outfield, right? When asked about that, he said that he doesn't feel overly compelled to trade one of his 4 outfielders, but teams have expressed interest and he will listen. He says here, going back to the trade deadline, teams have expressed interest in some of our players. I don't think that's surprising, and other teams recognize where we are. So we'll stay open-minded with those conversations. But again, we're going to hold a really high bar. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a classic example of leverage, right? Keeping your leverage high, keeping a good, strong position when it comes to negotiations with trades, right? To be honest, I think this is exactly what he should say. The Red Sox showed you last year that it was completely fine having 4 outfielders. I'll be honest with you. I would not be surprised at all. I mean, I know this might not be the answer you want to hear, but I really wouldn't be surprised if you still had all 4 of these guys in the fold. I really wouldn't. I do personally think Craig, he is going to want to get what he feels like is good value back for either Duran or Wilyer. All right, I don't think Seti is going to get moved. I think his name could come up, but I think it's either going to be Duran or Wilyer if they were to move one. Listen, they got good value. They have good surplus trade value. He's not going to give them away for pennies, right? I've been seeing some ideas out there. I've been seeing Vinny Pasquantino popping up out there. I'm not sure where that originated from because I haven't even seen one report that the Royals would want to do that. I'm not sure where that idea started. I don't see the Royals doing something like that. Well, so there was also a connection with the Royals yesterday that they're going to be in the market for an outfielder, which they should be. Right? They need to improve that outfield offense. But I've been seeing people say, oh, well, you can trade Duran or Wilyer for Vinny Pasquantino. Well, hold on. I'm gonna pump the brakes right there. I even see it in the chat. Tristan, trade for Vinny Pasquantino. Well, I'm gonna push back a little bit. The Royals ranked bottom 10 when it came to home runs last year. Why would they trade a guy who's got over 30 home runs? I don't really see it. And also, when it comes to trade value, surplus value, when you're factoring in the projections moving forward for Vinny, Duran, Wilyer, Duran and Wilyer are going to have higher projections moving forward because they play a higher value position. Vinny Pasquantino's a first baseman. First basemen simply they're going to lose a lot of value because of the positional, the adjusted field value when it comes to the position, right? Now with Vinny, he's going to give you some pop, but when it comes to his overall offense, the WRC plus, it's pretty good. I believe it was at like a 115, 116 last year. He gave you over 30 home runs, but you're kind of hoping even for more from a first baseman there. You're really looking for more offense than that. So Pasquantino, he's going to have some decent surplus value when it comes to a trade, but Duran is going to be way higher. Wilyer is going to be way higher, and I don't see why the Royals would move an offensive player, one of their best offensive players, especially one that is giving them home runs where they rank near the bottom, to trade for Duran. I mean, Wilyer, sure, that could put some power back in the lineup. That could, give them some defense out there as well. I think you could make the argument too. Duran, he could be a pretty good fit at Kauffman for half a season because that is more of a gap-friendly park, and Duran, I think, could fit pretty well. Kind of reminds me of Benintendi a little bit. He played very well there. But it's kind of like in my opinion, I think it's a lateral move, right? Because they need to add offense. I don't see why you would take offense out to just put another bat in. In my opinion, if they're going to go after Duran or Wilyer, I think they need to use pitching, right? Because they got a lot of pitching over there, right? So if they're going to be trading from a surplus, like the Red Sox trading from a surplus, I think they would, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong. I definitely have been wrong a lot, but I think it would be better for them to move from their surplus of pitching. They also have a couple of good catching prospects as well. I don't see why the Red Sox would want one of them, but that's just me. So I don't see Vinny Pasquantino, to be completely honest with you. Again, I don't know where that came from. I don't think the Royals would want to trade him. If you ask Royals fans all over the place, they pretty much say no on Vinny. I don't see the point of getting rid of a guy hitting over 30 home runs for. So like Duran, sure, he's going to give you speed. He's going to give you, he's going to be able to play the outfield for you. He can hit a lot of doubles for you. From a wins above replacement standpoint, Duran would actually be the better option than Vinny. But why? But the Red Sox, they're going to look at that trade and be like, well, we're losing on that trade because Vinny's trade value is not as high as Duran's. I don't think that's a match. Could you do Vinny and maybe a pitcher? Would the Royals want to do that? I don't know. I don't. I think the Royals more likely. I think they're a better trade partner for an outfielder with the Angels. I think going after Taylor Ward or Joe Adele makes a lot of sense. Taylor Ward, he's going to give you some good power there, which I think the Royals, they obviously need more of. They need to add power, not subtract power. Ward, I think, would make a lot of sense for them. And because he only has one more year of control, his surplus value is not going to be anywhere near as high as Durant's. Same thing with Joe Adele. Adele is coming off a good season where he hit almost 40 home runs, but he lacks the track record. So his value is not going to be, it's going to be good. It's going to be decent, but it's not going to be as high as, say, Duran's, where he's coming off 10 wins above replacement combined over the last couple of years. So I don't think the Royals and the Red Sox are great trade partners when it comes to anything with either of these guys. Vinny, I don't see it. I don't think it matches up very well. If they were willing to, Chris Bubic, I know people have mentioned him as well. Chris Bubic just had a rotator cuff injury last year. So are the Red Sox even interested in that? I don't know. I don't think they line up very well. That's just my opinion. I think the Red Sox are better off going after someone like Pete Alonso on the free agent market. But at the end of the day, anything can happen. The Royals, sure. Could they maybe pull off something for Duran or Willier? Of course they can. You never say never to anything. I just don't really see a perfect match with them. I think the Angels and the Royals would match up better because the Royals have some pitching that they could send back, right? The Angels need pitching, right? So I think that matches up very well. And the Red Sox, they're looking for more top-of-the-rotation guys. Chris Bubic, shoulder injury last year. I don't know. If you want to talk Cole Reagans, well, okay, I'm game for that. I'll talk Cole Reagans any day of the week. Absolutely. I think that you could get pretty, if that were a real conversation, yeah, I think that could, I don't know. I don't think the Royals would want to do that, though. So why would they want to trade Cole Reagans, their best pitcher? So I don't know. I think the Royals are going to go after Adele or Ward. That just makes more sense to me. Where was I? There was a lot going on there. Anyway, but the Red Sox, they're going to be looking for a lot when it comes to Duran or Willier. Because, again, they have a lot of value, right? So Craig, he's not going to sell them for pennies, right? He's going to look to get back very good young players that I think he would rather have that can help you now, right? Not just prospects, but guys that can contribute to the team now. I think the perfect situation is to possibly use one of them in a trade to land a number 2. I think that would be the perfect situation. That's just my opinion, though. But we also had this. He was asked if the Red Sox could sign 2 big hitters. 2 big hitters. He gave it a pretty interesting answer. He said we could. I think we're going to be very open to every conceivable path to improving the team. Specifically, what that looks like or who the names are that fill those roles, I think we'll see how the offseason plays out. And he did talk about Bregman a little bit as well. So probably not surprisingly, I'll avoid getting into specific conversations. But this is a great opportunity to meet with a bunch of people, a bunch of representatives, Scott certainly being one of them. And we know Alex intimately based on what he did for us last year, so we'll know how the offseason plays out, but recognize the fit that he provides. I'm going to be very honest with you. I think the Red Sox, when it comes to Bregman, I think they're just going to be very patient. I think Again, I've been looking at this. I've been looking at all the possibilities for Bregman out there. I don't see a better fit than the Red Sox. I really don't. I mean, sure, could you say the Phillies? Well, they got to figure out Bohm, and do they want to add a big contract? And they want to bring back Schwarber. We'll talk about him in a second. I don't know. I mean, they've been over, the Phillies have been over the CBT for 4 straight years. Are they going to just keep giving out contracts like candy? At some point, it's like, so are they going to be a good fit for Bregman? I don't know. The Mets? I mean, I think David Stearns, I think he's going to be looking for different things. I think he's going to be looking to focus on the pitching. He's got to do something about first base if Pete Alonso ends up going elsewhere. I don't know. I don't see the Mets very much. The Mariners. I mean, the last time they spent big was signing Robbie Ray for 5 years, 110 or 105 or whatever it was. Are they going to hand out a big contract to Bregman? I don't know. I don't really see that great of a fit. The Cubs, they got Matt Shaw. The Tigers, could they revisit it? Yeah, I think, you could see them making a phone call. But I think at this point, you have a younger player in Bo Bichette that could fit a need for them, whether that's a shortstop or second base with Kevin McGonigal coming up soon. So I think the Tigers, could Bo Bichette be more of a target for them if they were to go after a bat? I don't see a great fit for Bregman, to be honest with you. I think it's and I talked about this the other night. The Kansas City Royals, they popped up at one point for Bregman. I think John Heyman put it out there. That screams to me that Boras, he told John Heyman, hey, go put the Royals out there. We need to start trying to beef up this market for him a little bit. The Royals? The Royals? They're not going to sign Bregman. I mean, maybe a short-term deal, but I don't know. That sounds kind of wacky, if you ask me. I don't think there's a market for Bregman, but I don't think it's a strong market. I think the Red Sox, they check off all the boxes, so I think they're just going to play the waiting game. I think they saw this, right? Especially after the quad injury. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the front office at one point after that injury, they said, hey, you know what? Obviously, it stinks losing him. Obviously, we want Bregman to help us out, but hey, come off season, that might kind of help us out in the long run, right? And of course, there's going to be worries about Bregman with the durability moving forward, but the guy's already after it this offseason, man. I think he's going to be fine. Hey, stuff happens, injuries happen, but he's just been so solid, and he was great before he went down with that injury. It wasn't as great when he came back, but he came back early. He was out of his groove. I'm okay on Bregman moving forward, personally. But I think the Red Sox are the best fit. I think they're just going to wait it out. And who knows? Maybe of course, he could always go somewhere. That's just the way I'm feeling about it right now. I think they just wait. They let things play out. And they'll go from there. But in the meantime, could they possibly go after another bat? Of course they could. Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso, or Eugenio Suarez are among the top power hitters available on the free agent market. And we got a little something on Kyle Schwarber. And listen, Kyle Schwarber, I've been on record saying Pete Alonso, I think, is a great fit. For many reasons. I don't need to keep repeating the reasons. Obviously, hits for power. Can play first base for you. When Tristan Casas comes back, he can slide back in first base, DH, whatever it may be. Don't have to give up a draft pick. I think Pete Alonso checks off a lot of boxes, right? He's played in the big market. So I think he makes a lot of sense. But we did get something from Robert Murray. Taking a look here. Everyone I'm talking to here at the GM meetings believes that the Red Sox are going to be a big player for Kyle Schwarber this offseason, and that is absolutely a team to watch for him, though a reunion with the Philadelphia Phillies is very possible. Listen, Kyle Schwarber, I'm all about it. Of course, I've been on record. Pete Alonso, of course. But Schwarber, you can absolutely make that work. You're going to have to figure out what to do with Massa at that point. I think you try to move him. If you can't trade him, you probably just DFA him at that point. But Schwarber, he is just as good of a fit, in my opinion. And actually, Breslow did talk about this as well. And I think I have the quote here. Did he put I might not have the quote available on the screen, but I do have it here on the good old iPad. He said here, on the possibility of adding a designated hitter. Without talking specifically about a certain player, in one scenario, we like the flexibility of being able to rotate through the DH spot, whether that's any of the 4 outfielders, or being able to mix and match and give Alex multiple ways to deploy the roster. There are certain talents that are elite enough that you commit that spot to them. David Ortiz was an example I used. If you have David Ortiz as your DH every day, you just pencil him in. So yeah, I mean, Kyle Schwarber's Kyle Schwarber, and you're gonna see people out there and be like, "Oh man, that bat's not gonna age very well." Schwarber, at least in my opinion, when you just take a look at what he just did this past year in his age 32 season, Schwarber is one of those guys. I think he's just gonna stay strong in his 30s. He's a guy that just knows how to hit a home run. It's one of those things, man, you're just born with it. The guy just hits for a ton of power. He just knows how to hit a dinger, right? It's not even just having the strength and the power, but it's also he just knows what to look for. He just knows himself so well at this point. He's like mastered hitting the home run. It kind of reminds me of David Ortiz, obviously, right? Staying so productive through his age 30 years. You look at Nelson Cruz. I mean, even look at Jim Thome in his 30s. Those guys hit for a ton of power, and they just stayed very strong during their 30s, right? I think Schwarber is going to end up being the same thing. I fully believe that. I don't know. Just the way the dude just hits dingers. And he's just so good at it, right? He's a master of hitting the homer. So Schwarber, I definitely think makes a lot of sense, but I've talked about it at length. It's going to come down to the Phillies, I think. Are they going to spend the money to hang on to him? I just mentioned there, the Phillies have been over the CBT for 4 straight years. John Middleton wants to win. He absolutely does, right? That guy, he has been wanting to bring a World Series to Philadelphia for how long now? If you lose Schwarber, you're losing not just a big part of your team statistically, but you're basically losing the heart of your team, right? You could say Bryce Harper's the soul of the team. Schwarber is the heart, right? He's just, you could say the lungs. If you take out his home runs, the Phillies, there's not a whole lot of power at that. I mean, they'd have to go out. I mean, at that point, if they lost Schwarber, I could totally see them going after Eugenio Suarez, right? Like, they would have to pivot to someone like him. You would be losing too many home runs at that point. The next guy up was Harper with 27 or 28. Can't remember the number. But, yeah, that would be a big loss for the Phillies. But at some point, business is business. I know we can all sit here and say, oh, well, you got to go sign this guy, this guy, this guy. But when you're over the CBT for 4 straight years, you're getting hit with all these taxes, and you haven't gotten the championship that you're looking for. At some point, you got to make some kind of an adjustment. I'm not saying the Phillies are going to just go under the CBT, but just going out there and just giving out contracts to guys, it hasn't gotten it done. Now, could they clear out Castellanos, Taijuan Walker, maybe they trade Alec Boehm? That could clear off some payroll, and they could use that towards Schwarber, right? But, they got to figure out JT Realmuto too. So it's like, I'm not saying they won't or can't sign Schwarber. It's how far are they willing to go? That's what I wonder about. Because they do have other needs, and they got to focus on that. They got to focus on that aspect as well. If the Red Sox are willing to throw down the bucks for Kyle Schwarber, and they're willing to just keep outbidding them, I mean, I know, we've all been pretty hesitant about the Red Sox with their spending over the last couple of years. But hey, you just saw them throw down a high AAV on a short-term deal for Bregman just last year. Would they be willing to throw down, say for a 4-year deal, 5-year deal? 35 per year. Could you see the Red Sox do that? Maybe. Cora loves Schwarber. The front office loves him. He'd be a perfect fit. He's already shown he can play at Fenway Park. I think it'd be great. So But I think the one thing that keeps the Red Sox in the hunt from a financial point of view is it wouldn't be this long-term deal. I think it would be 5 years tops. Maybe he doesn't even need that. Maybe he's all right with just getting a 4-year deal. I don't know. Who knows? I think the Red Sox could absolutely do it. But if not, if the Phillies are too much, then I think Alonso is the guy that you got to watch out for. So it's going to be interesting here, but that is, again, the fact Robert Murray, he's always dialed in. He's at the GM meetings, and he's saying that everyone's talking about it, that the Red Sox are going to be a big player. I think it's a big sign. I think it's a good sign. We'll see what ends up happening. So we got a few more things to talk about here. We'll get to Scott Boras up next, but we do have a word from our sponsor. I'll be right back.
Kratz Pop Quiz. What has 35 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, 27 essential vitamins and minerals, comes in excellent flavors like, of course, chocolate, vanilla, but chocolate peanut butter, my favorite. No added sugar, gluten-free, under $5 per meal, and is ready to drink.
Go out the house, get yourself a Huel. Look at you. You even have one right there. Ready to smack that, John? Chocolate peanut butter, chocolate, and vanilla. Deliciosos.
Also, there is a new daily greens ready to drink, 42 vitamins, minerals, and superfoods. Only 25 calories on that one, 4 grams of fiber. There's flavors like blueberry, apple, peach. Huel makes healthy eating simple. They also just launched into Target stores nationwide. Try both products today with 15% off your purchase for new customers with the code FOUL at huel.com/FOUL. Use that code FOUL and fill out the post-checkout survey to help support FT.
Alrighty, let's get to it here, shall we? And Scott Boras is back, ladies and gentlemen. Good old Scott Boras, man. Good old Scott Boras. You gotta love it. He brought the puns back here today. He had a couple of puns that, listen, I love me a pun, all right? But there's just something about when Scott Boras does it. We all know this man is looking for all the money. He's looking for all the moolah. So to me, I love me a good dad joke. I love me anytime my dad or whoever out there, they lay out a good pun, it always makes me laugh. But there's something about when Boras does it, just rubs me the wrong way. Probably because he's been so difficult to deal with all these years, but he had this one about Pete Alonso. This one was a doozy. I think Pete, at this point in his career, he's about winning, no doubt. Had that question a lot. There's no doubt that Pete's pursuers are prime to pay the power piper. Pete picked a perfect period. I'm sorry, I'm emphasizing all the P's. To play preeminently at a really primary position. A playoff parched plethora. Jeez, man. Will pounce to participate in the polar plunge. First off, is he reading these in the mirror in his hotel room, in his nice suite, whatever floor he's on? Is he practicing this in front of the mirror? He has to be. He's probably just having a good old time, just sitting there in front of the mirror, just reading off, probably he wrote down it on his iPad or whatever he's got on him. How does he even remember this? There's no way he just came up with that on the spot. But we also had this one about Alex Bregman. He focused on the coffee, Dunkin', the beans. He focused on a more a Boston-themed sort of a statement. Prior to 25, Boston has been the kind of club that has Dunkin' well below the playoff line. I think it was a bad roast in Beantown. Give the owners credit in 25. They went out and spent some Starbucks to bring in a Bregman blend that led them to the playoffs. I'm sure the Boston fans don't want this to be a cup of coffee, and no one wants a Brexit. Unbelievable. Gotta love that. But if you are watching with us on Nesson, I do have to wrap it up right there. But if you want to see the rest of the show, come on over to YouTube, Monster Territory, and see what I gotta say. But everyone on Nesson, I'll talk to you next time. But Lots of coffee talk with Alex Bregman. But you know what? I think that was a good one, actually. Talking about a cup of coffee. Well, listen, I don't want it to be a cup of coffee. I want Bregman to stick around for a while. I think he brings all of the boxes that you're looking to check. On the field, he's going to give you a solid bat near the top of the order. He's going to give you good defense. He's going to be a good guy to have in the clubhouse, a leader, a face of the franchise kind of a guy. That's the kind of guy I want in Boston for the long haul. All right. So, yeah, I agree. I don't want it to be a cup of coffee. I don't want a Brexit. I think he'll come back eventually. So, however, we did have this on Pete Alonso from Tim Healy. Now writing for the Boston Globe, former Mets writer. And he says here, Scott Boras indicated that Pete Alonso is indeed amenable to DHing some starting in 2026, particularly in the right situation for a winning team. Ladies and gentlemen, if that doesn't scream Red Sox, I don't know what else does. That's exactly the kind of situation that the Red Sox have to offer. It's perfect. Again, I don't need to repeat it, right? Casas, he comes back whenever he is good to go, whenever he's feeling right, whenever the bat is looking all right. He can just slide right in, no pressure. And I actually think that would actually be a great situation for Casas, because coming into this past year, a lot of people were focused on him. Granted, he does like to say some things, and he does draw some attention to himself. I think we can all agree that that's a fair statement to make. He does draw a lot of the attention. But with that, a lot of people were focused on, okay, what was the production like, right? And he has shown the good power before. Obviously. I mean, my goodness. I think back all the time to the home run that he hit in San Francisco. The guy's got power for days. But I actually think if you bring in Alonso, that would really take a lot of pressure off of him, because they put him right there in the middle of the order to be a guy, a thumper there, and he was struggling big time. So I think if you bring in Alonso or Schwarber, however they do it, that would actually be good for Casas, and he wouldn't have to rush back. More so if you bring in Alonso. He wouldn't have to really focus on trying to get back as quickly as he could. He can just kind of take his time at that point, and whenever he's ready and good to go, there you go. There's your path, and you can kind of just stick him more towards the bottom of the order at that point, or a little lower, maybe 5th or 6th, 7th even, right? And he can kind of just focus. I'm not trying to do too much, right? Not trying to be the cleanup hitter for the Red Sox, because that's what Alonso would be. So I like that situation overall. And if he is okay to DHing, and that has been a talking point, is he going to want to be a full-time first baseman? And I've said, we've talked about the defense with him. It's been some of the worst defense at first base going back over the last couple of years. He needs to be DHing more. Now, I think, putting him at first base, when you're working the righty-lefty matchups, however you do it, I think it's fine to put him out there from time to time, right? I think it makes a lot of sense, right? So that was, I think, some underrated news here today regarding Pete Alonso. Now, we do have a little something on Devin Williams. Devin Williams, funny enough, we did a mailbag segment last week, a couple of weeks ago, can't remember, but we actually had a question about Devin Williams. And funny enough, the question was, do you see the Red Sox adding Devin Williams? And I said to that question, I can't remember the exact answer I gave, but I said, listen, the ability that Williams has, the guy strikes out a lot of dudes, right? He had an up and down year with the Yankees, but the metrics looked very good with him still. 13 strikeouts per 9, right? Still getting a lot of whiffs. He had some issues in the closer role. He seemed like he did better in the setup role. But that is a reliever statistically that would help the Red Sox, right? And funny enough, we actually got this report from Will Salmon of The Athletic saying that the Red Sox and the Reds are among roughly a dozen teams that have expressed early interest in Devin Williams. The Dodgers as well. And then also Kevin Barral linked the Marlins to Devin Williams a few weeks ago. there's absolutely going to be a market for him. I think the Tigers could use someone like him as well. I think he would actually fit very well in a pitcher-friendly park like that. The Giants, I think, would be a good fit. They could use some arms. There's a lot of teams that would like to have Devin Williams because the metrics look very good with him. And with the Red Sox, he would help. They were 19th in strikeouts per nine this past year, and that was with Aroldis Chapman. The bullpen was 19th in strikeouts per nine. So they could use a bit more swing and miss there. So that tells me, even if they don't end up getting Devin Williams, that shows where the Red Sox are looking to improve when it comes to the bullpen. They want more strikeouts, not just Chapman, but they want to improve in that area. So I think that's interesting. Do I think they're going to end up landing Devin Williams? I'll probably say no. Because the Red Sox, they got bigger fish to fry. They're looking for the middle of the order bat. They're looking to add to the top of the rotation. Could that be a trade? Could that be a starting pitcher on the free agent market like Dylan Cease possibly? Sure. I think, though, the Red Sox, they're going to be looking for more swing and miss. I do think they need to add to the bullpen, and I have talked about it. I think they need to add a lefty to the bullpen. Justin Wilson, is he going to come back? I'm not sure. But I think that's something they could focus on. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if the Red Sox at some point, they just pulled off like some random trade for a lefty reliever. Kind of just like an out of nowhere. Kind of like like when the Red Sox signed Justin Wilson, it was sort of like this under the radar kind of a move. I could see that happening again this offseason. We'll see. But Craig, sure, he's got to go after the big names, but don't doubt Craig when it comes to finding some diamonds in the rough, right? So we'll see how that goes. Let's get to the last topic of the show. And Christian Campbell. Yes, Christian Campbell. He is still around, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso, all the pictures out there. But we got a little Christian Campbell here. And also, I'm going to be touching... actually... Really quick, let me pull up the... Did I touch on the Joe Ryan story? Oh, you know what? I did not touch on the Joe Ryan story. So hold on, let me pull this up here. Here we go. I think I clicked out of it. I got to touch on that. Yeah, we got to talk about that one. Here we go. This is important, right? This is something you got to pay attention to. And let's read it first. So, Derek Falvey, he talked to The Athletic not too long ago. He said, our focus and my goal has been figuring out how to add around the group we already have. We think our starting pitching is the strength of this team. We know Pablo and Joe have been real anchors for us the last couple of years when healthy. We have Bailey Ober coming back in a healthy spot, and then all of the young pitching that we acquired, whether it's Taj Bradley and Mick Abel, who we just acquired to join Zebby Matthews and Simeon Woods Richardson, and David Festa and others. We like that group. I have been on record. I've been on record here. Now, I've been on record saying I think that they should trade Joe Ryan, but I have absolutely said that the Twins have good young talent there. That's a team, just because they traded off a whole bunch of guys at the deadline, do not write them off in 2026. They got young talent there, right? Brooks Lee, first-round pick a couple of years ago. I could see him definitely getting going a bit more. They got one of the top prospects in the game, Walker Jenkins. He's getting close. Pulling up their roster here. And, Luke Keeschel, very underrated prospect last year. The guy was hitting great. Royce Lewis, has shown good things in the past when healthy. If he can stay healthy, that's a big question mark. But, they got guys here. So that's why I was saying, if you were to trade for Joe Ryan, could you do someone like Duran or Willie Abreu? Because they have good talent here, right? It's young, but you could add a guy like that under control that can help them compete over the next few years. But yeah, they have a solid rotation here. I mean, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, Zebby Matthews, the overall numbers weren't great last year, but he's shown some good things. Mick Abel, he looked a lot better last year. They got him back in the Phillies trade. So they got guys. So I think with Joe Ryan, I think they will move him, That's what I think, but I think it's the leverage game, right? This is another form of leverage. This is Derek Falvey saying, we're not going to be giving up Joe Ryan easily. We're not going to be just trading this guy for nothing, right? Yeah, they obviously made a lot of moves at the deadline, but he doesn't want to go into this offseason thinking, all right, everyone's up for grabs. Show me your best offer. Like, no, he's going to put out there, hey, yeah, we like Joe Ryan. We like Pablo Lopez. We want to add to this group. They just brought in Shelton as the manager. So they have every reason to hang on to him. They don't need to move him. Now, I think they will. I think they should, at least, right? But it's not going to be cheap to acquire him. It's going to take a bit. It's going to probably take right around what it took to get Crochet, to be honest with you. Right around that price, right? Probably 4 for 1, and including a top 50 prospect, maybe even a top 25, right? So we'll see. But I have been on record as well saying, I've wondered if the Red Sox, did they miss their chance on him, man? I hate to keep saying it, but not only could the Twins just hang on to him, but teams out there like the Mets could absolutely get a deal done for him, right? So I wonder what is going to be the direction here for the Red Sox. I'm very intrigued about that, right? But a little water thrown on the Joe Ryan sweepstakes. You're going to have to keep an eye on that. So we will see. Now, last story, Christian Campbell. Talking about where his best defensive fit is. Craig Breslow said, that's something we're actively discussing. Even if that may not be the case long term, perhaps in the short term, just giving him some stability and certainty to where he's going to play and maybe easing some of the kind of mental demands on trying to play multiple positions at the same time. Last year when they were having him taking some reps at first base, I thought it was cool. But and I love how open he was to doing it. He's like, hey, wherever you want to put me, man, put me out there, right? But man, you got to think, this guy had a lot of hype coming into the last year, and he got off to that hot start. Teams figured him out. He was playing all around. He was playing up the middle. He was playing in the outfield. And Red Sox Nation last year, we were all saying, like, why is he playing in center? Like, stop moving him around. I think it was only hurting him in the end, and he was just having too much going on. But he did say here, in terms of the position, that's an ongoing conversation, and some of it might be dictated by the roster construction as what we believe to be best for him. I think he's incredibly athletic. Sometimes the way he goes about the swing or defense is a bit unorthodox in terms of the optics, but he has been a good defender in the upper levels of the minor leagues. Whether that ultimately is in the infield or the outfield, we'll figure it out. We saw him play above average defense at second base in the minor leagues. He played a little bit of shortstop, some outfield. Last year, he struggled in the big leagues at second base. If you think about where his athleticism may play in the short term, I think in the outfield. He feels pretty comfortable as a chance to just kind of let the instincts take over, right? I think you need to figure that out, but I think that is the right way to go for right now, because the Red Sox, an underrated thing they need to address this offseason is improving the defense up the middle. Story had a really tough September that just made his defensive numbers tank. Second base has been just basically a black hole for the Red Sox over the last couple of years. Campbell looked great there, at least with the bat for the first month. But the defense, he was having issues out there. I've said it a million times. I think Marcelo Meyer needs to be the second baseman. I think he just shores that up completely. And I think Christian Campbell working into the outfield, I know we've talked about this outfield surplus, but I think that's, right now, I think that's the way to go. And with his right-handed bat, let's say you end up hanging on to Duran, Willier, or whoever they hang on to, that could be a way for him to work into the lineup, right? Having the right-handed bat. Cora, he likes the matchups like that. So that's how I think, at least right now, based off of how things look, that's probably what you're going to see from Christian Campbell, right? Just working into the lineup in those kind of ways. Someone goes down with an injury, you call upon him, And hey, if they end up hanging on to Willier, Duran, whoever it may be, especially Willier, he had some injuries last year, right? Duran, he didn't hit very well against lefties last year. Same. You could say the same thing with Willier, right? So I think there's going to be opportunities for Campbell. And I think when his opportunity arrives, I think he's going to be... I'm a big believer in Christian Campbell. I'm very high on him. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders, very athletic. I think he's just got to get in the lab this offseason, really smooth out some things, work on that approach, trying to pull the ball a little bit more. I think he'll get there. I'm very high on him. I think he still has a bright future. But that's all we got here for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. That is all we have. That is it for the news. We're kind of day by day. Well, we are going to be live here on both Nesson and Monster Territory Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But we're at least here on the channel, we are day to day. Basically, if there's big news to talk about, I'll be live, right? I'll be here. But do expect the show on Nesson Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So definitely look out for that. Who do we got here in the chat? Corbin, Moose, Kristen, how you doing? Hello. Kyle, Quentin, how you doing? Brent, Oscar, what's going on? How we doing? Joe, thank you for coming by. Tristan, thank you. Moose, appreciate you, my friend. But everybody, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to wrap it up right there. I got to go actually work on something for the main channel right now. I got to get something uploaded. But everybody, if you can, hit the like button for me. Subscribe if you are new, if you're just finding us for the first time. And I'll talk to you next time.